Episode 282, The Future, Part 2. This is the Change Underground. I'm your host, John Moore. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. As we discussed last episode, a confluence of events pointed to supply chain issues and possible food shortages. Things like rising energy costs, fertilizer costs, personnel shortages in key parts of the supply chain, and so on. So imagine my surprise when I discovered the truly remarkable substance, AdBlue. I'd seen this being promoted sometime in the past decade as a diesel additive, or so I thought. It turns out it's a diesel exhaust additive. Squirted into the exhaust of diesel engines, it removes nitrogen oxide and replaces it with nitrogen and water. AdBlue is a compound of deionized water and, wait for it, urea. And urea is, of course, a 46% nitrogen chemical compound used primarily in agriculture as a fertilizer, and, probably more disturbingly, sometimes as an animal feed, or at least as part of an animal feed in the CAFO system. According to the Progressive Farmer website in a piece entitled DTN Retail Fertilizer Trends dated the 20th of October 2021, quote, leading the pack this week is urea, which saw its price rise 26% in a week. For reference, DTN considers any price change of 5% or more significant, with an average price of $719 a tonne US. Urea is $147 a tonne more expensive than it was in mid-September, end quote. I should also note that a graph on the site shows urea began the year at under $300 US a tonne. So as noted in episode 278, major fertiliser producers are closing down and or cutting back production of nitrogenous fertilisers as the input costs, mostly natural gas, have skyrocketed. The story so far, price rises are pushing the cost of production and the price of nitrogenous fertilisers higher. From the mid-2000s, AdBlue has been added to diesel engines to reduce pollution. Oh, and the world's largest producer of urea is the People's Republic of China. And they're hanging on to their supplies. Hungry populations tend to be restive and not conducive to continued dominance by a command economy-dominated one-party system. Urea then is in short supply and a shortening further situation. Here's the added wrinkle. Most modern diesels won't now run without AdBlue. It's another critical choke point in the supply chain. And you'll never guess what. It's in critically short supply because of the urea shortage. This is a self-inflicted wound by the Chinese in some sense, as the CCP decided to make an example of Australia for raising human rights issues and so on. They have therefore moved from Australian black coking coal in urea production to brown coal. Yes, I'm aware of the whole coal thing, but come with me. The lower quality brown stuff is also rising in price and not particularly well suited to urea production. Add to that the Russian supply constraints on natural gas pushing prices higher as well, and the conclusion we came to last week is a fertiliser shortage in the near future. AdBlue is in critical sphincter tightening shortage, pretty much now, according to the ABC, quote, while it appears the trucking fleets in Australia and other countries will be capable to keep running for all-important Christmas period, there are fears matters will come to a head early next year. Some major trucking companies are reportedly set to run out of supplies within weeks, this is of the AdBlue, while others have suggested stocks are unlikely to last beyond January, and it's a similar story around the world. Last week, South Korea resorted to the drastic step of importing 27,000 litres of urea solution from Australia after China cracked down on exports. In Europe, where a high proportion of private cars are diesel, AdBlue is all but unavailable. The tight market has sent prices for the additive soaring, with costs at the pump rising by as much as 10% over 2 days last week. I had a member call the other day. They've got 250 prime movers, so they're a big organisation. Mr. Clark said you'll need to read the article to find out about him. A lot of their fuel they buy in bulk, so they are basically out of AdBlue next week. End quote. Okay, things are crook. We may have 4 weeks, maybe 6 under current conditions to get some home food production happening. There is a doomsday version of this where tractors stop moving as well, harvests aren't happening. Anything that can't be harvested can't be transported to people. I'm hoping this will be avoided. Remember the 4 meals from Anarchy link from last week. If money can fix the issue, then I'm assuming governments will subsidise the stuff, and that assumes the stuff is available somewhere. Alternatively, emission standards could be suspended and a workaround the won't run without problem might be fixed in the short term. The environmental effects are not positive. Burning cities aren't particularly green either, just quietly. So get planting, in inverted commas, has been my mantra for so long that it's almost monotony, but it still holds. I understand the Northern Hemisphere is not in a growing season at present, but microgreens, indoor plants, I'm not really sure, but plant something somewhere. In the Southern Hemisphere, we're approaching peak growing season. Seeds might be an issue, but I think that particular beginning of the pandemic panic has passed. And remember from last week also the Cubans came through their hungry years with a better system, and I suspect healthier people too. We can as well. We can avoid the hungry years, and if we shorten our supply lines, speak to our neighbours, start community gardens, join community gardens, start an allotment, plant a window box, anything, really, just start growing. And we'll be okay. It's hard to see it working out well for a lot of people. And I would like to just recommend everyone plant something. And you know the drill. If you need help, there's a free ebook at the World Organic News website, and the No Dig gardening courses there too. There's a link in the show notes for those. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. Thank you all for listening, and I hope to be back next week with better news.